Ladies and gentlemen, your hosts, Lorelei and Space Deviant.
There she is, Nestor. Hey, Kimiko! Ha ha! Your man's back!
Not so fast, big boy. Things are different. We got to talk.
This is the moment I knew both of these characters were going to die.
Not in my dress, you dog!
Dancing girls don't get a lot of respect, but a good man does not rip the dress off any woman in public.
I got a lot of monsters back there in that bird cage. Every one of them was a hero in Korea. But here in Tokyo, they're all monsters.
Mickey Rooney's Mike Forney is a monster, and one hell of a brave pilot.
You gotta quit sassing them officers like you just did. When are you gonna learn, Nestor? You can say anything you like to them as long as you put sir on the end of it.
Bridges of Toko-ri is full of controversial themes, especially for that era.
Not only the ethics of soldiering, but government mismanagement.
They want us to fly our egg beater in behind enemy lines 3 times a day after meals. I don't mind rough duty, though. I really hate them commies.
Effects of PTSD.
What's the matter, Lieutenant? You look kind of edgy. You know what I used to do when I got jittery? I used to walk out to the forward end of that flight deck and let that spray hit me right in the kisser. It used to fix me up every time.
And how unprocessed grief destroys lives. Our tragic hero, Harry Brubaker, is a former World War II pilot, long since settled in to civilian life. But a mere 7 years since serving in the largest war in the history of mankind, Harry was again called up to sacrifice for his country.
Militarily, this war is a tragedy. I think we ought to pull out.
Basically redrafted and forced to fly the unfriendly Korean skies.
And it wasn't as if there weren't qualified pilots. There were the organized reserves, a kind of pre-National Guardsmen that had been trained to fly.
But rather than activating these men who were both drawing pay and wanting to fly, the government, in its eternal wisdom, decided to leave them at home and force traumatized veteran pilots back into service.
Well, sir, the organized reserves were drawing pay, but they weren't called up. I was completely inactive, and yet I was. I had to give up my home, my law practice, everything. Yes, I'm still bitter.
When Harry Brubaker leaves dinner with his wife, Nancy.
Hon, there's been some trouble in Tokyo, and I think I'd better
Harry,
go. What
no.
kind of trouble? That's Mike Forney again, sir. Oh.
To bail Mike out of jail, she's rightfully upset. But the Rear Admiral quickly lets her know that it was that green top hat wearing wild man who had pulled her husband out of the icy sea only days before. He goes on to tell Nancy that she reminds him of his daughter-in-law, another woman who didn't want to hear about the danger. But when his son died at Midway, she was so unprepared for his loss that she lost herself.
For a while, she tried to make love with every man in uniform. Thought he might die one day. Then she grew to loathe herself, attempted. I don't know where she is now or what she's doing. Once she was my son's wife.
Later on in the movie, as Harry and Nancy lay in bed, she asks the hard question. She asks him to tell her about the bridges of Toko-ri. And we watch as Grace Kelly comes to terms with her husband's impending death.
Harry, you've got to tell me about those bridges.
Bridges span a narrow gap between 2 mountains. It's one of the most important targets in all Korea. Consequently, it's fortified accordingly. Although we're only over the target about 30 seconds, it's a lifetime. Every kind of gun imaginable is hidden in those mountainsides.
Harry didn't have PTSD because the term didn't yet exist. But Harry had shell shock.
And we get a glimpse of Harry's mental state when the deck crew has to bring out Tilly.
This is Tilly. She picks up aircraft and gets them off the deck if they lose a wheel or something.
Why do they call her Tilly?
Why do they call you Nancy?
I know it's a Laterno crane, but there's some argument as to which one. So if any of you have the sorting vintage machinery into their Hogwarts houses as a special interest, please solve this mystery for me in the comment section. During the mission, Harry's jet goes down inland and his boys zoom out in their dragonfly, trying to rescue him. They all fall together. American lives lost beneath that rising red tide.
It's not a happy ending.
But it is a beautiful movie.
Where do we get such men? They leave this ship and they do their job. And they must find this speck lost somewhere on the sea. When they find it, they have to land on its pitching deck. Where do we get such men?
For being as old of a movie as it is, and at a time when you really, I don't want to say you couldn't talk about things like that, but there were still all of the old school film rules in order. And that's pretty much, it's an anti-war Korean War movie.
Pretty much. Oh, Americans were fed up with war. So, at that point.
You're right. I mean, you're not wrong.
Oh, yeah. They were in that, so that was the movie for the times.
I mean, think about it that way, because those guys, they spent their 20s. You know, both of our grandfathers were at Leyte. I mean, that's Harry's age, about that age. But then, like, non-consensually reactivated. He was forced to sell his law practice. Like, uproot his whole life. He'd been, we're in 46, 47,
right.
And this is
7 years after where World War II ended.
We don't think about that.
Yep.
We just think about World War II ending and us being done, and then everything being like a big push. But it was right into the communists.
Yep. So you had like Patton, who just wanted to keep on rolling.
I mean, in hindsight, I hate being lied to.
That's why we were able to build that massive ass highway system.
Nuclear waste is good.
So the next,
sort of.
I always just say, well, let's ask the 4,000. Oh, there's like 4,000 engineers who signed a petition that was like, this is bullshit.
I'm saying I don't want my government tokens giving me worm juice for the month.
Why does it have to be me again?
Nobody ever knows why he gets the dirty job. And this is a dirty job.
America, built to last.
Yeah, that's right.
No, that's right. They be flying that flag all night.
Red, white, and blue.
Thank you for joining us today. We really do appreciate your time. I'm Lorelei, and this is
Space Deviant.
And together, we are Southern Fried Cinema Siblings. And remember, the most important story is the story you tell yourself, so
make it a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. You're still here, are you? Well, why don't you make yourself useful? Click the share button. Click the subscribe button. May as well go ahead and click for the next episode, too.